Good evening, everyone. You're welcome to the monthly mentoring session hosted by Career Life Nigeria. We do this every month. Career Life Nigeria does this every month. So we help young professionals who desire to upskill their careers. We help them by answering career-related issues bothering them and providing clarity. For the month of June, the topic we'll be considering is insight into the labor law, the rights of a Nigerian employee. And a facilitator for the month of June is Adama Uguna. I'm going to give a brief summary of who she is, so we know who we have with us today. So Adama Uguna is a legal advisor. She's an HR professional. She's also a people operations and culture person, a versatile HR executive with technical expertise in corporate HR policy formulation. She's a member of the Nigerian Bar Association with over 7 years of professional work experience. So everyone, because our mics are muted, through the chat box, let's say a huge welcome to Adama Uguna. She's been here from the very start when the host started this session. So thank you so much, Ma. We do appreciate you for doing this with us.
Thank you very much, Jamie. Okay, Jamie, let me share my screen instead. I'll rather share my screen. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, I can hear you. You'd rather share. All right.
Yes, please let me share. Yes, so that I can have some control on it.
All right, that's fine, Ma.
Okay, so have you stopped sharing?
I have.
All right, okay. Okay, so good evening, everybody. It's a great pleasure to be here for this month mentoring session. Temi has given a brief rundown about me, and I was like, okay. Okay, so I'm going to facilitate a presentation on the rights of an employee, the rights of a Nigerian employee, and just give me a minute to share my screen, just a minute, and we'll start right away. It's going to be interactive in the sense that I will be taking your questions immediately after my presentation. So once I'm done with the presentation, we can ask questions. I know some people might have some questions they might want to ask, but I know from some little experience that by the time we begin to ask questions in the course of the presentation, there might be some form of distractions. So I would, appeal to you that if you have any questions, just
maybe where's this thing now? Where's the class?
If you have any presentation, any question, just note it, and then at the end of the class or the discussion, we'll just, ask and answer the questions. All right. Okay. So
don't unmute.
I'm trying to share now. Okay. I want to be sure that everybody can see my screen. Okay, so we are looking at the rights of a Nigerian employee, insights to the labor law, and we're going to go right into it. We're going to dive right into it. Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty of today's discussion, I need to point out that there are several statutes which govern employment and labor-related matters in Nigeria. It's not just the Labor Act. The Labor Act is one of the many, statutes that govern employment matters in Nigeria. And I've listed some of these, statutes which are operational in the country. We have the Labor Act, which is what we're going to be discussing today. We have the Trade Union Amendment Act. We have the Trade Disputes Act, National Minimum Wage Act, Employee Compensation Act, Factories Act, National Housing Fund Act, Pension Reform Act, Employee Housing Scheme Act, and of course, the Local Content Act. These are just some of the statutes that govern employment-related issues in Nigeria. Now, before we go into this, I need to point something out. the way the Labor Act is couched, it does not actually spell out rights. Rather, it's designed in such a way that it writes out the obligations of employers towards their employees. In other words, the labor law provides for obligations of employers towards employees, and those obligations automatically become our rights as employees, our expectations from our employers, okay? And those are what we're going to be looking at, that those obligations that the Act has placed on our employers, which automatically becomes our rights. Now, who is an employee? Before we even start, who is an employee? The Labor Act was quite detailed in explaining who is an employee, even though the Act uses the word worker to explain who is an employee. And so what does it say? An employee is a worker, and a worker means any person who has entered into or works under a contract with an employer, whether the contract is for manual labor, clerical work, is an express contract, it's implied, oral, or written, whether it's a contract of service or a contract personally to execute any work or labor, that person is a worker. In other words, once you have entered into an agreement with somebody, you are an employee. It could be for manual labor, it could be for formal work, it could be express. Somebody can say, oh, please, I need you to resume at my place of work as an accountant. You have the qualifications I need, and I'm going to pay you 100,000 naira every month. Please, can you resume? And you are like, okay, no problem. I can do this job. I accept, and then you resume. You've gone into a contract. You have become a worker. You have become an employee, and you are protected under the Labor Act. It could be oral, and this comes into play when dealing with informal manual labor. You can say, oh, I need a gardener. Can somebody please come and, I need someone to come and garden, my farm, work on my farm, work on my garden. And somebody comes, please, oh, can you help me trim the bushes? Can you help me trim the flowers and all that? And then at the end of the day, I'll pay you 5,000 naira. I'll pay you 1,000 naira. It is oral. By the time the person is done, trimming my flowers, cutting the grass, I pay. He has, within that time frame when he's working for me, he is a worker according to the Labor Act. And of course, written contracts, which is what is obtainable in a lot of organizations these days. In fact, so many people don't even start work if they don't get a written offer of employment. But we need to understand that in addition to formal employment, there are also other informal forms of employment, which is what the labor law is talking about, and which the labor law also protects everybody who falls under that category. Now, the labor law makes an exception. Public servants, civil servants are not covered under the labor law, under the Labor Act. This is because civil servants have their own public service rules, civil service rules, and all that. So anybody who is a public officer or a civil servant is not covered under the Labor Act. Now, before we go further, I would like to make a quick distinction between contract for service and contract of service. A lot of times people use this interchangeably. A contract for service is when an employer or a company goes into an agreement with a third party to avail its services. And a contract of service is when a company or an employer goes into an agreement, enters into an agreement with an individual. If, for instance, I want somebody to supply split unit ACs in my organization, what I'm entering into is a contract for service. And so the person supplies me, or the organization, the third party supplies me with what I need. That is the contract for service. Once the person has supplied me with his services to meet my needs, that contract is over. However, when I go into a contract with a person to come and work for me, it is a contract of service. In other words, our employment letters, our offer letters are contracts of service, not contracts for service. Okay, now we have gone into the Labor Act proper. Section 1 of the Labor Act starts with payment. And then you begin to ask, why would it start with payment? It's very easy. The only reason why we work is to earn. I don't think anybody works here just for the fun of working. Yes, some people like working, some people enjoy their work, but anybody who is working basically to earn. Now, as an employee, the most important part of your employment contract is that your payment has to be made in legal tender. This is very, very important. In fact, it's so important that that is what Section 1 of the Labor Act provides. legal tender. And now what's our legal tender in Nigeria? Of course, it's the Naira. It's the Naira. We have instances where people these days earn in US dollars, some people earn in pounds, some people earn in euro. These are all legal tender which can be used to transact in Nigeria. Let me give a quick, very brief story. Yesterday morning, I was having a conversation. Please, can we mute our mics? Can we mute our mics? Thank you very much. So yesterday morning, I was having a conversation with an old friend of mine, and then he was telling me about how he started out as a marketer. And let's say he was marketing powdered milk. That was not what he was selling, but let's just say he was marketing powdered milk. And they gave him, for the first month, they gave him goods worth about 600,000 naira and told him that if he sells at least 50 or 60% of his goods, that he's going to be paid his full salary, which was his agreement with them. And so he sold about 60% of the stock that was given to him, and he was paid. This happened for the first and second month. By the third month, the first of the third month, they now told him that, CEO, if you sell the usual 60%, just take 60,000 naira worth of powdered milk as your salary. He was like, but that's not our agreement. They said, no, just take it and sell it. Whatever you sell it, if you sell it high, that is, you can. That was very, very wrong. And to his credit, he stopped work immediately because he had other, stuff that he was doing that he could fall back on. But that is it is illegal. Any payment that is not in a legal tender is an illegal payment. I mean, is he going to go to the market with a packet of powdered milk and say, give me tomato and take powdered milk? No. So if for whatever reason your employer is giving you a bag of rice, is giving you yam, whatever, food, it is not your payment. Your payment has to be in legal tender. Of course, these days we don't expect people to pay us cash after working. Payments are made into accounts. But remember that the Labour Act also covers, is an umbrella that also covers people in informal sectors. So there are still people who are paid cash. They have to be paid in cash, something they can use to transact, and not in kind, so to speak. Now, even payment with check, payment by check has to be with a consent, written consent of the employee. You as an employee, you have every right not to receive your payment by check, except you give consent to that, because you cannot transact with a check. You cannot go to the market and give somebody a check in your name. It is not a legal tender, so to speak. So, except to give written consent, payment is not to be made by check. Now, the Act goes further to say that as an employee, you have a right to spend your wages, that is to spend your income, your salary, in a place and manner that you wish. Your employer does not have the right to tell you where to spend your salary or how to spend your salary. No, it is illegal if that person does it. Now, let me give you another instance. This is hearsay. I don't know how true it is, but let me just give an instance. I heard someone told me a while ago that while working in a certain religious institution, when they are paid, they remove their tithes. It's wrong. I mean, if you choose to pay your tithes directly, it is your choice. But your organization does not have the right to say you have to spend your tithes back on them. It's wrong. It's illegal. And then another thing that the Act provides for is that payment is not to be made in a place where liquor, that's alcohol, is sold, or in a market where sales of goods take place, except that is where you are working. Now, remember, like I said, payment these days are made into bank accounts. But of course, there are still some form of employees who collect their payments in cash, especially casual workers and manual laborers. It is wrong for an employer to take you, if you are a casual worker and he takes you to a beer parlor or a restaurant or a lounge and say, yeah, take your salary here. It is illegal, except that is where you people are working. So you have a right to say, no, don't pay me here. This is not our place of business. Please pay me at our place of business. I can't be working in a school and then on payday, you take me to a lounge to pay me. The Act says no and seriously frowns on it. Now, going forward on payment, the Act also talks about deductions. It is very, very key for you to note that as an employee, your employer cannot make any deduction without your consent. If you don't give consent, deductions cannot be made from your salary. It is illegal for your employer to make any deduction without your consent. However, there are some things you need to note. There are some statutory deductions which other acts have, made provisions for. Remember, I mentioned some of the other acts that regulate and govern employment-related matters. Now, some of those statutory deductions are pension, NHF contribution, your payee, and of course, for people who work in unionized organizations, union levies. However, in as much as these deductions are statutory, your employer cannot maybe give your consent at the point where you sign your offer. If you were to look at an offer letter, there is always a clause. Please, can we mute our mic? Thank you. Please, can we mute our mic? Please, can we mute our mic? Thank you very much. So like I was saying, if you look at your offer letter, there's always a clause that, provides for deduction. So by the time you sign your offer letter, that is when you have given consent that these deductions should be made from your pay. Okay. Now, for people who work in unionized environments, when you join the organization, of course, the union will give you forms to fill, consent, and all that to pay your union levies, maybe 100 naira per month, 1,000 naira per month, or whatever is obtainable. By the time you sign that consent form, the union sends it to your HR so that the deductions can be made. The summary of this is that as an employee, deductions cannot be made from your salary without your consent. So even the statutory deductions, you have to give consent by signing the offer letter which has been given to you before these deductions can be made. And it's important to know that every deduction from your pay for that month should not exceed 1/3 of your salary. In other words, if you're earning 100,000 naira, for instance, whatever deduction, your payee, your tax, blah, 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 shouldn't exceed 1/3 of your salary. Now, as an employee, you have a right to a contract of employment. Of course, when we are looking at today's business world and all that, a lot of people, most people don't even resume work without a contract of employment, because you have to look at the terms of your employment, you have to look at your work hours and all that. However, I'm sure some of us here, or a few of us, might know somebody or know somebody who at some point in time, somebody has told him, oh yeah, come and start work. Come and start first. Come and start. We'll give you a letter. Come and start. I'm sure if I were to ask us to unmute and answer, 1 or 2 persons might have experienced it or know someone who has experienced it. Excuse me, let me take a drink of water. Or might have known somebody who has experienced it. If that is your situation, as an employee, you have every right to demand for your contract of employment not later than 3 months. In other words, within 3 months that you have started the work. If you start work on the 1st of July without a contract of employment, July, August, September, you have every right to demand that your contract of employment is given to you no later than the end of September, which is 3 months after you have started work, especially if it is in a formal organization. Now, I need to point out some things that makes up the essential clauses of an employment contract, which you as an employee have to see in your offer letter. It's very, very important. The Act has taken out time to list out all these clauses. So when next as an employee, maybe you're changing jobs or you're going to start in a new place or you're being promoted or seconded to another unit, you know exactly what you are looking out for. Number one, the most important part is the name of your employer. I work with Imperial Homes Mortgage Bank. My offer letter reads Imperial Homes Mortgage Bank. It wouldn't make sense for my offer letter to read First Trust Mortgage Bank because I don't work for them, or a blank letterhead. So how do I enforce it? In the event of a dispute arising from my employment, how do I enforce it? Who do I enforce it against? So the name of your employer has to be written on your offer letter. Now, your name and your address is very, very important. If somebody gives me an offer and I open it and I see Chioma Majekodumi, that's not me. My name has to be there. Adama Uguna has to be there. My address has to be there. And then the place where I'm going to be working and the date of my engagement. Now, it's very, very important for you to note all these things. Let me give you an example. We had a staff who resumed work on the 5th of May last month. Yes, he resumed on the 5th of May. And then so at the end of May, after payroll and everything, he came to me and said, my salary is not complete. I said, no, your salary is complete. He said, no, my salary is not complete. I said, how is your salary not complete? He said, I worked for a full month. I said, no, you didn't work for a full month. He said, I worked for it. I said, what does your offer letter say? He said, 5th of May. And I asked him, that's not a full month. a full month is from the 1st of May to the end of May, that's the 31st of May. He said, no. I said, no. The 1st of May, I think, was on a Saturday or Sunday. The 2nd of May was on a Sunday. Okay, I can't remember exactly, but let's assume the 1st of May was on a Saturday. The 2nd of May was on a Sunday. And there were 2 public holidays on the 3rd and the 4th. And so he started on the 5th. Do you understand? And so his pay was calculated from there. Now imagine if we did not put it in as an employer, or if he as an employee did not even notice it. He probably did not understand what was happening, why his pay was not complete. These are some of the things as an employee you need to look out for. If your date of engagement is not on your offer letter, you have to point it out before you sign, because of in the event of disputes arising in future. Now, the nature of your employment. It has to be stated in your offer letter. Is it a fixed term employment? What is a fixed term employment? An employment that has a fixed period of time. Is it from the 1st of January to the 30th of December? If it is from the 1st of January to the 30th of December, that once it is, 31st of December, the contract terminates except it is renewed. For some people, their employments are permanent, indefinite. Some organizations either call it permanent or permanent indefinite, which means that it can extend for a period of time until either party decides to terminate the contract. And of course, your JD, what are you coming in as? Are you coming in as a HR manager? Are you coming in as admin manager? Are you coming in as finance officer? It has to be stated there. If you don't see these things in your offer letter, you as the act has said that you as an employee have every right to ask your employer for these things. What is the nature of my employment? It has to be stated in your employment contract. Then your appropriate notice period. This one we'll discuss it later in the as we go on. Every offer letter has to have a termination clause. So when next you get an offer letter, look at it very well and look for the termination clause. If there's no termination clause on it, you have every right to point it out to your employer. And of course, the rate of your wages and how it's calculated. You see some people, they say, okay, there's a breakdown of your salary, your basic is 10,000, 20,000, your rent is 30,000, housing is this is that. It has to be stated there so that you know exactly what you are expecting at every point in time. Okay, and then of course the periodicity of your payments. When are you going to be paid? Some people pay on the last day of the month, some people pay on the 24th of the month, some people pay on the 28th. It has to be stated there. So if you don't see it, please, you have every right to call it out. When am I expecting my payment? The act has given you, has empowered you to ask your employer to tell you exactly when you are to expect your payment. If on that day your employer does not pay you, then you're working with somebody that owes salary. Now, other terms and conditions, hours of work. Is it 8 to 5? Is it 9 to 5? Is it 8 to 6? You have to be stated there so that you know exactly what you're coming to do. Holidays, annual leave, it has to be with pay. It should be stated in your offer. Incapacity, in the event that you are unable to work, health insurance provision, group life insurance. These are things that should be provided in your offer letter. And of course, any special conditions of the contract. Most times, most of these special conditions are embedded in the organization's handbook. So as an employee joining an organization, it's also important for you to ask for their handbook so that you know exactly what you are about to get yourself involved with. Now, the act goes further to say that any change in the terms of the written contract, any change in the terms of your contract of employment has to be written. So if I come up to you tomorrow as your HR manager and say, oh, Kunle, go to finance, it's void. It has to be written. Even if it is via mail, it has to be documented, it has to be written. And once it has been, and in that documentation, the terms have changed. If you're moving me from my Ikoyi office to my Victoria, to a new branch in Victoria Island, am I changing my work hours? Do my terms and conditions remain the same? Is there an increment to my pay? Is there whatever that is going to change? Is there an increment? Is my JD going to change? Is my job description going to change? Is there going to be additional tasks assigned to me? You have every right to request that this thing should be spelled out clearly in black and white so that you know exactly what you are going into. Okay? Now, this one is quite important. Every worker, the Act says in Section 8 that every worker who enters into a contract shall be medically examined by a registered medical practitioner at the expense of the employer. A lot of times, some employers will just, after you're done with your interview, they say, come and start. The Act frowns at it. Yes, a lot of standard organizations insist that you go for your medical, but we know that a lot of people don't. I want to tell you that you have every right to insist that you are properly examined. Now, let me give you an instance. While I was working in the maritime industry at Apapa, we had a situation whereby one of our senior management staff needed a driver. I'm going to give you two instances. And so we were looking for drivers, professional drivers, not people who just decided to be drivers, but people who have taken driving as their career. Eventually, we found somebody. He was in his mid-40s. All his life, he has been a driver. He has certifications from Federal Road Safety, from LASMA. Like, he had everything. He had awards from everywhere he has worked, best driver of the year, this and that. And then the senior management guy was like, this is the person I want. And to even make matters better, they live within the same vicinity. And then the next thing, we sent him for medical. And the medical reports came in. What did we see? This person's blood pressure was over the roof. He was literally a walking corpse, let me use that word. And then we sat him down and explained to him that, see, at this point in time, we can't give you this job because of your blood pressure. What we will do instead is to give you some time, because this man wants to actually work with you. We will give you a month, okay, for you to go back and take care of yourself. Then you will come back, we'll send you for medicals again and test you to be sure that not only are you qualified for this job, but that you are also fit for the job. He said, okay, no problem. Unfortunately, he never came back. I don't know, maybe he got another job. But the point is that as an employee, you need to know that you are actually fit for that job. You need to know. Because you might think that you're healthy. You might think that, oh, I'm good to go, I'm young, I'm strapping. And then you come into the job, and then before you know it, you collapse. Imagine that man, maybe he was driving someday, and then he faints and dies on the road. It would have been a terrible situation. Another instance I want to give also is still in that maritime industry. Because we had shop crane operators, people that will lift out containers from the ship that have docked, and then move those containers to the flatbed trucks and all that. Your eyesight is very, very important. Imagine where we interviewed somebody and say, yeah, come and start. And it turns out that the person is suffering from myopia. Imagine the kind of maybe accident that would occur in the port, and also put the life of the employee at risk. So please, when you're going for interviews, these are things that you should know. When you are giving offers, these are things that you should know. What of my medical examination? Am I actually fit for those jobs? Because we also want to be alive to do the job. We want to be alive to also get your benefits and all that. Now, termination of contracts. There are various ways by which contracts can be terminated. Number one is by expiring. Like I said earlier, if your contract is for a fixed term, January 1st to December 31st, if it is not renewed, then automatically the contract has expired and terminated. If a person unfortunately dies, the contract has terminated. And of course, the most popular one is notice. Notice in accordance to Section 11 of the Act, or in any other way in which a contract is legally terminable or held to be terminated. Now, the Act provides, ways by which notice can be given. It says if you have worked for less than 3 months, 1 day, if you have worked for less than 2 years, 1 week, and all that. However, what is obtainable these days is that when you're on probation for some organizations, you can give maybe 1 day notice, you can give 1 week notice and all that. But when you have been confirmed, and maybe when you have worked for a period of time, you have to give 4 weeks notice or 1 month notice. And then for some senior management staff, you have been given, you can give like 2 or 3 months notice. As an employee, you have a right to terminate your contract by giving notice. That's basically resignation. You can actually give notice, or you pay in lieu. The Act makes provision for payment in lieu. So if you decide that, okay, I don't want to give my 1 week notice, I want to pay, what is the equivalent, what is the cost equivalent of 1 week notice? The Act makes provision for payment in lieu. Okay, so those are ways by which you as an employee can terminate your contract. Work hours. The Labour Act does not specify general work hours, but under the National Minimum Wages Act, minimum work hours are 40 hours a week. So you have 8 to 5, ordinarily it should be 9 to 5, but you have 8 to 5, you have 8 to 6 and all that. Now, I need to state this very clearly. As an employee, the Act has provided that anything outside your work hours, is overtime. is overtime. I have to say it one more time. Anything outside your work hours is overtime. See, I work in HR. My work hours are 8 to 5. Once it is 5 o'clock, I will close whatever I'm doing and carry my bag and go home. Because anything outside that time is overtime. So as an employee, when you are coming in, these are questions you have every right to ask. It's not a situation whereby your offer letter says 8 to 5, and then your employer will not be looking at you when you stand up by 5 and say, where is he going to? No. The act has said it that any work outside these hours is overtime. You need to discuss these things. In the event I work beyond 5, in the event I work beyond 6, what is the provision for overtime? Overtime is to be paid outside your regular salary at the end of the month. So please take note of this. Because I see people who work long hours, and I'm like, but what is your work hour? They will say it's so to 5. But are they paying you overtime? No. Did you discuss overtime with them? No. Is there any provision for overtime in your handbook? You don't know. So what are you doing? You're not being paid for these hours. So please, before you sign any offer, these are questions you have every right to discuss. Is there overtime payment if I work beyond so and so time? It is very, very important. And of course, break period. If you work for a stretch, 6 hours, 5 hours, your break period is not supposed to be less than 1 hour. The act is very, very clear on that. So these are also things that you can ask. What is my break period? You need to know all these things, and it needs to be covered in your offer letter or in the handbook, which you will read and sign. Okay, so okay. Now, as an employee, you have a right to suitable work. Now, let me explain what suitable work means. My first degree is in law. I practiced law for a while before I made a switch to HR. Now, imagine I'm working in Imperial Mortgage Bank. I was employed based on my experience and knowledge of HR and law. And then I come to work one day and I'm given financial accounting. That is not suitable work for me. I can't do it. Or I come to work one day and I'm giving mortgage forms and say, go into the street and go and sell mortgage. I can't even sell pencil. It is not my field. I can't do it. It is not suitable work for me. So as an employee, you have every right to suitable work based on what you were employed for. You shouldn't be timid because you have the act to protect you. You should be able to speak up. If you are not given work that is suitable for your expertise, suitable for your skills, for what you were employed, you have every right to call it out. Now, if for whatever reason your employer chooses not to provide work for you, he is still obliged to pay you. The act provides that he will pay you. Whether he provides work for you or not, he will pay you. But if the work is not suitable, please, you have every right to walk up to your HR and speak to him or her. You also have a right to a safe system of work. I went to a place recently in VI and the heat, I could not, when I entered there and the heat hit me like a door on my face. I could not even remember what I came there to do. And I was so uncomfortable. And I was trying to imagine people working there 8 to 5. I asked one of them, said it's because of diesel. Diesel is expensive and there is no light. So if diesel is expensive and there is no light, does that mean that I should work in this heat? How do you even want me to function? Okay, so I'm reading what somebody is saying here, that all this knowledge is for people that work in abroad. Well, Godwin, I work in Nigeria and I'm telling you that this is applicable, all right? So as an employee, you have every right to a safe system of work. If you don't feel safe in your place of work, call out to your employer. Let him know, this place is quite hot. This place is not comfortable. My chair is uncomfortable. My back is aching. I cannot sit down properly. These are things that you need to talk out. You need to talk about. You need to speak out on as an employee, because the act has provided that you have every right to a safe system of work. I mean, you need to come to work and go back home now. Exactly. Okay. Now, what are the benefits that are provided for you under the act? Sick leave. The act provides that you have a minimum of 12 days sick leave, give or take 1 day a year. So because we are human beings, we're not machines, and even machines break down. So sick leave is provided for you under the act. Annual leave with pay is provided under the act. You are entitled to go for your leave and with pay. If you're going on 20 days leave, you are entitled to be paid. Some organizations pay leave allowance and all that. That is by the way. But your salary for that month that you're on leave, whether your organization provides leave allowance or not, is to be paid. The Act also provides for maternity leave, six weeks before confinement and then 6 weeks after confinement for women. However, in some instances, some medical issues can arise and all that. If a lady or a woman brings a medical report extending her stay or her confinement, due to medical whatever, your employer has no right to terminate you for that period, as long as you have brought a medical report and you are able to resume within the time that has been stated in the report. Okay, the Act does not provide for paternity leave, no, but I think the Nigerian government signed it into law for their public service 14 weeks, 14 days, 2 weeks paternity leave, and a lot of organizations are beginning to, include paternity leave in their handbook. Some give as low as 3 days, some give as much as 7 days and all that. In as much as the Act does not provide for paternity leave, a lot of organizations are beginning to take it into consideration. The Act also prohibits women working at night. Sorry, I need to quickly go back. Yes, the Act prohibits night work for women. This is for safety and all that. But there is an exception where you're a nurse. Act makes prohibits women working at night work, and night work is defined as anything from 11 to 5. So, but in the event you're a nurse or you're a management staff who does not do casual labor and all that, that is the exception. Aside from that, women are prohibited by from night works. So these are some of the obligations that the Labor Act places on an employer, which in turn becomes the right of an employee. Now, I'm going to quickly look at do a brief review of other employment laws in Nigeria, which are relevant to us in our day-to-day running of our day-to-day business life. Number one is the Employee Compensation Act. I know some of us may have heard about it, the Employee Compensation Act. This act applies to all employees, both in the private and public sector. And then the act also establishes the NSITF. Some of us may have heard of NSITF, Nigerian Social Insurance Trust Fund. Now, employers are expected to pay 1% of their annual payroll as contribution to the NSITF Trust Fund. And then what the ECA basically does is to provide compensation for employees who are injured or who die in the course of their employment. So you can also use that to ask your employer, are you contributing to the NSITF fund, so that, God forbid, if anything happens to you, there should be some form of compensation. There's an act that mandates all employees, both in the that mandates all employers, both in the private and public sector. This is a very detailed act. This Employee Compensation Act is very, very detailed, because like I keep making reference to, I used to work in the maritime industry, and it's one of those high-risk industries where accidents and all that. We had the situation of a couple of employees that were crushed by cranes and all that. And then I know I made claims with NSITF for about 2 of them. And before I left there, we knew that the NSITF was paying their beneficiaries. We also had somebody who suffered loss of limb and all that. So we also made claims to NSITF, and he was being compensated. So the ECA is a law that is very, very important, because it has to do with the compensation of employees. And I can tell you that because I have had dealings with NSITF, it actually works. They actually make payments to beneficiaries. Okay. Now, the other one is the National Housing Fund. I made reference to some statutory deductions, which includes 2.5% of your basic monthly salary to the fund. The NHF Act established a fund called the National Housing Fund. And this is basically to avail Nigerians with the opportunities of getting their own homes. It's a 1992 Act, and it provides that anybody that earns 3,000 naira and 2,000 naira annual salary and above, because that is ridiculous in today's Nigeria. But anybody who earns, well, according to the Act, 3,000 naira and above annually or monthly should contribute 2.5% of their basic monthly salary to the NHF funds. And now, who are the beneficiaries of these funds? Mortgage institutions. Mortgage institutions can get loans from Federal Mortgage Bank, and then give out loans to contributors. So if you are here and you have been contributing to NHS for at least a minimum of 6 months, you can actually access the National Housing Fund. All you have to do as a contributor is to walk into a nearby mortgage bank, can walk into Imperial Homes Mortgage Bank or any other mortgage bank, make inquiries on how to access NHF funding for purchase of your home or to renovate your home and all that. Okay. Okay, so there's also the Industrial Training Act. This is basically an act that is to promote acquisition of skills, training for employers. As an employee, your employer, you have a right to be trained by your employer so that you can acquire more skills. This act was enacted so that employers can provide training for all their indigenous staff. Just like the NHF Employee Compensation Act 1% payroll contribution, employers are also supposed to pay 1% to ITF, that's Industrial Training Funds. The good part here is that if your employer pays this to ITF and sends you for training, it's a win-win both for you and for your employer. Because number one, you're going to get skills which are relevant for you to carry out your job. And then your employer can also claim back 50% of that 1% of their annual payroll that they have contributed to ITF to find out. And you can also let them know that they can get back the money that they have contributed and that they have used on training you. Like I said, it's a win-win. Your employer wins, and you, the employee, most importantly, you acquire the necessary skills relevant to carry out your job. Of course, one of the more popular laws is the Pension Reform Act. Most people know about the Pension Reform Act. This act is basically to establish rules, regulations for the administration and payment of retirement benefits. Okay, I'm sure a lot of us have PFAs that we use. Some people use Stanbic IBTC pension, some people use HOW and all that. Now, employees in the private sector who have private sector employers who have a minimum of 15 employees are mandated by the act to remit pension. Okay. And of course, the minimum contribution is 8% for employees, 10% for employers. All right. So if you choose to increase your contribution as an employee, you can always inform your employer. It's within your right if you want to increase your contribution from 8%. Okay. If you also work in an organization that people are less than 15, or even less than 3, or you are self-employed and you want to contribute, you can actually contribute. You can actually contribute to your pension, to the pension scheme. And I can also tell you that they make payments. We've had people who have retired, came to us, wrote reference and all that, supply them with some documents that they required. They go back to their PFAs, give them those documents, and they get their pension paid to them periodically. Even those who have lost their job for about 4 months and all that. And of course, finally, there's the NIC, National Industrial Court. Disputes arise all the time. People can feel that they were unfairly dismissed. Their employment was unfairly terminated. They have grievances. The National Industrial Court is a superior court of record that adjudicates labor-related matters. So if for whatever reasons you have challenges or you feel that you were unfairly terminated or you were unfairly dismissed, you didn't go through due process, the NIC is a court of superior record where you can bring your grievances to. All right, and they are very, very fast. I can also attest to that. Unlike the state high courts that get clogged with so many matters, the NIC is strictly for trade disputes, and they try as much as possible to dispense justice within record time. Okay, so I've come to the end of my presentation. Thank you very much, and then I'm open to your questions. Let me look at the chat and see what we have here. Okay, so I'm open to questions now. Okay. Okay. Hello. I can see Emmanuel's hand is up. Emmanuel, please, can you go on?
Yes. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. Adam, am I right? Am I right?
Yes, you are right. Thank you.
Thank you for the session.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so you said for contract of service and then contract for and contract for. So now an outsourced company that recruits staff for an organization, what type
Yeah.
of contract is that one?
So the contract, if, for instance, let me use my bank where I work, for instance. Let's say I work with, not let's say, I work with Imperial Homes Mortgage Bank. And you, Emmanuel, you have Emmanuel outsourcing firm, right?
Yeah.
Hello,
Yes.
are you with me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so the contract I have with your outsourcing firm is a contract for service. That is the contract I have with your outsourcing firm. Now, the contract that you have with the people that you send to us is a contract of service, because our outsourced staff are not our staff, so to speak.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's true.
Yes.
So that's number one. So number two, you see,
Okay.
actually I work as an outsourced staff in the bank actually. So
Okay.
now I want to know if, because I've seen talks about it, and then I don't know sit comfortable with me, because if I play bet with an account I have with the bank I work with that is not my salary account, do the bank have right to query me and say, why did I play bet?
No, say that again. Say that again. I didn't get that question.
Okay, I said I work with a commercial bank as an outsourced staff.
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear me now?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Okay, so now if I play bet as in I play bet Nigeria sports bet,
Yes.
and I use the account I opened
Salary
before
account.
No. I didn't use my salary account now.
Okay.
I have an account with the bank before I even joined them. So
Yeah.
now, do they actually have the right to now query me and say, okay, why did I play bet? Because even bet is legal in Nigeria.
Yes.
They have
So
like,
hold on, Emmanuel. I was about to ask you a question. I wanted to ask you: is betting legal in Nigeria?
that's not. I think it is now. They have license.
Okay. So it's a legal activity, right?
They have license. Betting is legal over 18 years. So far you're over 18 years. That's why they don't close the shops. If it's not legal, they won't open shops. Nigeria betting will operate. Nigeria
So I
betting
think
operates.
you've answered your question. Now, it's a legal activity.
So, but why? But I've seen a scenario where they have to query somebody and say, why are you playing bet with an account that is not a salary account?
That is a weird one, because how do they have access to your account that is not your salary account? How do they have access to it?
You know, because that time when I heard it, I'm kind of confused.
You know, sometimes when
let me give
something,
you.
okay.
Okay, I want to give you a small hint. You know, with the bank I work with now, if you have so far you're a staff, when you come in as a staff, you know, they open a salary
Yes.
account for you. So when the other accounts you have, any other account you have with this bank, what they do is that there's a space when you try to check the information of that account when you've joined already. There's a space that attach your staff ID with any other account you have with the bank. So I think that's how they treat it.
Oh, okay. Okay. So I can't really speak to that, but as long as it's a legal activity, betting is a legal activity. So I don't understand why, except the person that is being queried. Is it taking loans? Is it borrowing from other people?
It's not borrowing loan. It's just when you want to play bet, you have to credit your bet wallet, and probably I think he did it with his account, and they were querying him that why are you playing bet, and I'm like but
It's
it's
legal
money.
activity.
What you can do anything? It's just as if assuming he didn't play it online, it can actually walk into
Yeah.
it.
So somebody is asking a question. Was he doing it during work hours?
No, we're not doing
Playing
work.
bets during work hours?
No.
Okay.
They just
So
downloaded the
let me say something again. I need to add something. When something does not happen to you directly, you should realize that people always embellish stories. Assuming this thing happened to you directly, we might be able to get the actual truth behind it. So we're not going to spend a lot of time debating hypothetical questions because it didn't happen to you. This is what somebody reported to you. So he may not actually have told you the real truth behind that story. So let's take, you're done, right? Let's take Toby's questions.
I have one last question, just one about tax.
All right, okay.
So you see, my employer, the outsource company, it's in my offer letter that okay, that the remittance, NHF, tax,
Yes.
and pension. But how do I know they're actually remitting the tax? Because there was a time
No, let me quickly answer that one.
I'm actually in Kwara State. So
it's very straightforward. Do you have a tax ID? Do you have a tax
that's the
ID?
thing. I'm not sure I have one because there was a time they were actually collating for people in Lagos. I think Lagos State took it seriously for people. So I'm not confused. How do I know they're actually remitting it?
It's very, very simple and straightforward. Talk to your HR, since you said you're in Kwara State. Find out if you have a tax ID. The way it works in Lagos is that if you have a tax ID, you can easily log into the tax LIRS platform and make the inquiries that you need. Or you can always walk into a tax office. So if you have a tax ID, it's easy. You can walk into the Okay, so find out from them your tax ID. If you don't have a tax ID, you can either, I don't know how Kwara State works, but for Lagos State, you can generate your tax ID online. If you cannot generate a tax ID online, then you can go to the tax office and get.
I'm sorry, but what is a tax ID?
Okay, so can I go over to Toby? Thank you very much, Emmanuel, for your questions. Toby, please. Hello, Toby.
Yes, can you hear me?
It's really echoing.
Wow, let me just, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Please, I will go straight forward. I don't have this question to ask.
Oh, I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Okay, yes.
Yes. I said I just have a small question pertaining what you just discussed. Yes.
Okay, you know what?
Hello,
I think your audio is bad. I can't hear you. I'm struggling to hear you. So maybe I should take the next person while you sort out your audio. Okay?
Yes.
What do you say?
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Okay, I can hear you.
I can't hear you.
Okay, so I can't hear you, Toby. Please, let's take Remy's question. Hello, Remy. Please, can you ask the question? I can barely hear Toby.
Okay, hi. Good day, Adama. Thank you for the session. So two questions. Yeah?
Okay.
So if I need to, how do I calculate it? I'm actually supposed to give my office a 1 month
notice.
1 month notice, and I've not gone on leave for that period. That 1 month notice, can I see? Do I calculate my leave that I have not taken? Maybe I worked for like 7 months.
Okay.
8 months. Do I calculate that and take it off that time, or that 1 month I have to be at work? Then secondly, when
1 plus 1
place and you're asked that, are you owing? What's the reason they ask that question, and does it pose any kind of significant
I need help. What
on you if you say yes, I'm owing at my previous place or something? Thank you.
Okay, so let me take the first question about notice period, right? Whether you want to find out if when you give notice, whether your leave, if you have any outstanding leave, whether you can include it in your note and give it as take your leave as part of your notice period,
There's
right?
a virus in my computer.
Hello, Remy. Did I get your question right? Hello.
Yes, you did.
Okay, so it depends on what is the provisions in your handbook. What is the provisions in your staff handbook? Is your leave period, can you take your leave period as part of your notice? Yes, it is obtainable in a lot of organizations, but you have to know what works in your own organization, what is provided in your own organization.
Sorry, what works in your own organization, if I may ask?
I can't tell you that now. You want me to divulge what works in my organization? You see me outside camera. But the point is that you have to know what works for your organization, all right? If it's provided for your handbook, then you can take it. Now, the second question, why organizations ask if you are indebted? Yes, they want to know your liabilities. They want to know your liabilities, what you are bringing into the organization. And remember, even if you tell a lie and say, no, you are not indebted, by the time your new organization sends reference back to your previous employer, you know your previous employer is going to write that you are owing so and so, you are indebted so and so. So it's basically to know your liabilities, to know your indebtedness, to know, and you're also to know your character. Are you somebody that pay off your indebtedness? Are you somebody that pay off loans? Maybe you work in an organization that provides for loans. Are you someone that pay off loans? It also speaks to your character and your integrity as a prospective employee. That is why some of these questions are asked, Because even if you tell a lie and say, no, you're not indebted, you will not know when your new organization writes to your old organization for reference. And I bet your old organization is going to write it down there if you are actually owing. All right. Okay, so let's quickly take Godwin, because I think I have 30 minutes for this question. So we'll have to fight.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, who am I speaking to, please?
Toby.
Okay, it's better now. Okay.
Yes, I just have.
Maybe you should type your questions. We can't hear you. At least I can't hear you. Please, Godwin, go ahead.
Okay, good evening, ma.
Good evening, Godwin.
Yes, ma. Actually, I want to say thank you for this session. It's a very nice session. I really love it. But you know what I type online, actually, I say for Nigeria, whatever. Actually, I'm a contract staff.
Okay.
I work in one of this commercial bank. You know, there's a clear difference between full staff and commercial staff and the contract staff. It's like we are maybe like primary school and them they're university. So the difference is clear. The discrimination is just too much. I don't know how to explain it. Maybe something that will just
against you. Who is discriminating against
you? I'm like the full staff.
Yes.
And against the contract staff, the discrimination is too much. I don't know anybody can talk about it, but I'm telling you for my own part, for me to complain like this. So that labor act, all those things, I don't know how it should be going around, like let them know that contract staff are really human beings. That's number one. And then number two, I observed something. I noticed that at the time I got my offer letter, I was actually going home that day. And when I was going home that day, before I got home, the person that gave me the offer letter called me that, they actually made mistake with that. I'm not meant to go to that place, that they want to switch me just because the person is a lady. I was like, why do you want to switch me? Of course, I did not reject it. She was like, I'm a guy, I need to hustle, I can work in the island, just giving this kind of talk. I had to call so many people. All those people just told me that as you have the offer letter, just quickly run to that place they post to and give them first. And that was exactly what I did. And when I got there, they accepted me. Even the woman kept on calling me that, where's the offer letter? That if you don't come back, we'll do this one, we'll terminate you. All those, I didn't listen to them until the person that accepted me called the woman that, what's the meaning of this thing? He has all this thing. So I don't know why such a thing will happen like that. Since they've given it to, why would that change be there? So that means if that change can be there, then that means definitely they can do anything at their own way without seeking our consent or something like that.
Yeah, but
thank you.
Okay. So concerning the discrimination against
it's too much, especially in the commercial bank. It's too much.
But have you made complaints to the outsourcing company that seconded you to the commercial bank?
The truth is, even if you made that complaint, nobody listening to you. What's come to us, they will tell you they will transfer you, and the same thing is the same thing that will happen everywhere. It's not just contract staff are like. I'm talking from my own part because I'm actually in the shoe. So we work more, we do many things. In short, we work more than others, but yet it's like we're not even doing anything at all. Or well, it's just fine, Sha.
Sorry about that. Okay, so Priscilla, can we take your own questions?
Yeah, please can you hear me now? Toby's back online.
Okay, Toby, please go on.
Yes. Based on what you discussed earlier, I just have only 2 questions to ask regarding that. So before I even ask the question, in response to what my fellow colleague just said now about the contract staff and the full-time staff in commercial bank, I was one in the shoe. In fact, the treatment made me to resign. I don't have any other business. I don't have any other job doing, but the treatment. I just like wake up this day that what was this kind of thing? I resign. The treatment is bad compared to the own staff.
Okay, so let me quickly make a reference to this commercial bank contract staff. I don't work in a commercial bank, so I may not be able to speak to you, but I want to tell you something that it has to do with with the organization's culture. Like I said, I don't work in a commercial bank, so I cannot really say this is what it is, this is what it's not. Where I work, for instance, we have interns, we have core members, okay? And we even have some contract staff. With the exception of salary, of course, even in an organization, everybody cannot earn the same. You understand?
Yes,
There are
yes,
different
yes.
rates and all that. But where I work in Imperial Homes Mortgage Bank, you won't even know that a person is an intern. I wish one of them was here to maybe, verify what I am saying. So I think it has to do more with the culture of the organization or whatever commercial bank you are dealing with, because it is not fair if the discrimination, the way people are sounding very bitter about it, and I imagine it must be held. So I think it has more to do with the culture of the organization than anything else. Because like I said, I work in a mortgage bank. We have contract staff, we have interns, we have core members, and of course we have full staff. If a person does not come out and say, I am an intern or I am a contract staff, I doubt if you will know the difference. So I'm trying for us to be fast so we could take, what's your second question?
My second question, there's this company I work with
Okay.
before they gave me the employment letter and the appointment letter, everything was duly signed by me and the HR personnel. So after like 3 to 4 weeks, not even up to a month, then I just resumed to work that 50 day. The HR now called me that she's so sorry, and just because I know that this is the new department that they are trying to balance things, they are trying to set up things, that they won't be needing my service again. I was like, they gave me an appointment letter. I read through the appointment letter. I have a probation period of 6 months, and I've not even used up to 3. I've not even used up to 4 weeks, not up to a month. You are calling me now that you are sorry that it is a new department, that they won't be needing this rule again, that they are trying to balance. So I accept it that moment, but not writing, not signing anything, just the way he said it, that the man will just come on with the opinion. So after I went back home, and I sent them a mail that I won't be accepting this. This thing have cost me a lot of things. I just write the mail and sent it to them that because of this, I left my comfort zone. I've left an apartment here in Lagos and I've put something together just like I've get a job. So I won't be getting this. See that you pay me off for my 6-month probation, or you give me a quick notice. You can't just tell me now that I should do. So after like the following week, they now call me to a meeting with the company lawyer and the rest of the management. So I overheard it from one of them saying that it's the line manager that wants to switch his own brother to the role.
Okay, so let me come in here. Let me quickly come in here. Okay. In your original contract, which they had given to you initially, yes, what is the termination clause there? What was the termination clause?
The termination clause is that if after my probation period, if the company is still interested with me, I will be given a writing letter. That's it's not 2 or 3 weeks.
So did they give anything about notice period? Like you can give, maybe you can give them 2 weeks, or they will give you 2 weeks?
That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay. Now, did they pay you in lieu? Did they pay you in lieu?
They didn't pay me. The HR just asked
that was where the problem is.
Yes.
Okay.
And he said if I can accept another department, if I can accept another job role, like me as an engineering graduate, I should be going to business development, also, that he would only give me 1 month probation. If I can't perform well, then fire. That's the way he said it. And I said, oh, this is not what I applied for. And you can't just.
I'm trying to get somewhere. I'm trying to work within schedule. So I'm sorry for interrupting you. But what I want to respond is that, ordinarily termination can be without cause. And what without cause means is that it is not yours. You have instances where people are working, and I'm not trying to defend them. Maybe the processes whereby they went about it can be said not to be so right, but terminations can be without cause. If, for instance, an organization is facing an economic downturn, or a department that was created is no longer feasible, maybe that department is no longer necessary in the market, like this instance that you are giving, and has to be closed off, you can be terminated. The only thing that they ought to communicate it to you and pay you in lieu. The challenge here now is that they did not pay you in lieu. The termination is not the issue. it can be terminated because, like she explained to you, that department was no longer, working or something, or they needed somebody else, or whatever reason that she gave you. But where your grievance should have been especially on is that they did not pay you in lieu of notice, in addition to the days and weeks that you have worked for. You said you have already worked for three weeks or 1 month thereabout. They should have paid you for those days that you have worked for, and then pay you in lieu of notice. All right. Okay.
Yeah,
so can I take?
Yes, the last question, please.
Okay.
Yeah, the last question. There's this organization I'm working with. So after joining them, I asked for my job description as an intermediate employee. So after the first day I had joined the team, I asked the HR personnel. They said I should go to the line manager, that they will be the one to issue my job description for me.
I wish you would go straight to the point so that I can take that question. Just tell me the actual question. Yes, please.
Yes, the actual question is the job description.
Okay.
And I don't know what I can do. I've meet them time without number. They keep saying next week.
Okay.
And I'm sitting down, I do nothing, and my fellow colleague will be like, do this. I don't even know, maybe what I'm doing is outside my own job. So all this kind of thing. So I don't know what next.
No, I think it's very, very important that you get your JD. Because if you don't get your JD, how can your performance be measured? So I would insist that you keep on. I would advise that you insist to the HR to get your job description, or your line manager, whoever you're reporting to. Because if you don't have a job description, your performance cannot be measured. What's your KPI? Have they set KPI for you? What are you basically doing?
They said KPI is after 3 months. After 3 months. So that's their system.
Okay, maybe that's their own policies. Okay, can I take Priscilla's question now? Hello, Priscilla, are you still online? Hello? Okay, I thought she raised up her hand. I thought her hand was raised. No problem. Any other person has any other questions so that we can round up?
Hello.
Hello, good evening.
Hello, good evening.
Okay.
It's Priscilla.
All right, okay.
Okay, my question is on pension.
Okay.
If you're working in a private company,
yes.
And then the company has a pension, and maybe you terminated your job or you were terminated, either ways, and then you have to move to another company. How is the pension? Is the pension actually transferable to a new company? And if peradventure that company does not have a pension, they don't have anything they do with pension. Maybe they are not really interested in it, or they don't do it for their staffs. So how is that person able to manage the pension he was running with the other company? That's my question.
Let me ask you a question. What is your PFA? What's the name of your pension fund administrator? Who do you use?
Actually, for me, I use a First Bank, but this one is an instance of someone. Okay.
No, okay, go on.
Yes, I actually use First Bank. That's my pension body. Then I have somebody that was doing with a company. It's actually the person that was telling me her own story. I can't remember the company she was doing with, but she had to move. And I was asking how are you? She said, "Oh, it's just there." So I don't know, how can you manage it if peradventure where you move to, they don't actually have anything like that covers for staff? How can you manage it? Is it that you can move it or tell them, or you need to write to the pension body, or do you need to write to the company and say, okay, I want to manage it myself. I want to be paying it myself I want to understand, how do you manage it? Yes.
Okay, so let me explain the way the pension works as provided for by the Pension Reform Act. There are PFAs that that this pension is remitted to. For instance, let me use myself as an example. Okay. I use PAL pension. And then since I started working in 2013, I've always used PAL pension. So when I move from company A to company B, all I have to do is give company B my pension, my RSA number. Okay, can you mute your mic? You can still be hearing me. Mute your mic, okay? So all I
Okay.
have to do is to give company B my pension details. Okay. Once I give them my pension details, they continue remitting. So where I have a challenge is what you mean by the company is doing pension, because the pen is not a company, it's the PFA that manages the pension, not the company. If for whatever reason, I leave Imperial Homes Mortgage Bank at the end of this month, and I'm going to, let's say, First Trust Mortgage Bank, all I have to do is to give First Trust Mortgage Bank my pension details, file pension with my pension number, and then First Trust now begins to remit my pension to the same account. It's one account. So it is not dependent on an organization, except maybe there is more to it. Maybe the organization have their own internal contribution or something. But if it is as provided for under the Pension Reform Act, then a PFA is the one that the pension is remitted to. So maybe you should confirm from your friend or your colleague, whoever is having these challenges, what is her actual PFA? If she has a PFA, e.g. PAL or IBTC or whichever trust fund or what have you, all she needs to do is to move her pension ID to the new organization where she's working, and then they continue to remit. Now, the second part of your question where you said an organization, if they decide they cannot, no, they don't have that right. Once you have a minimum of 15 employees, you must pay pension. That is what the Act says. In fact, if you have 3 employees and you want to, you can. But once the employees and organization is up to 15, you must pay pension. It is not based on the whims of the organization. It is not based on how they feel. It is statutory. Okay, so please let her know this, that as long as her organization is about 15 people or more, and even less than 3 people, even can still contribute. But if for whatever reason they are up to 15, then her organization is mandated by the Pension Reform Act to remit her contributions to her PFA. Okay? Thank you very much. I hope you
okay, sorry. Yes. Let me get myself clear. Now, for instance, if the company, let me be more specific now. Maybe if I'm running with Stanbic Trust Bank, maybe I'm having a pension with Stanbic IBTC, and then I move to another company and they are running with First Bank pension.
Oh,
so I want to. It doesn't matter.
Yes.
Okay, it doesn't matter the PFA, the type, this thing. I mean, it's still the same RSA number that will still run through for all of them. Okay, that's what I want to get. Okay, beautiful.
Give them your RSA number. Yes,
beautiful. Do you know why I said that? There's a company I also worked with. Their pension was not really serious. So I wonder the contributions people were making, as in how are they managing it, Because a leadway company came to the company, and though I didn't work for them for a long period of time, I just started during that COVID-19 time. And then unfortunately, there was a lot of recession. So they just dropped all of us. So it was an oil and gas firm, a private firm actually. So we were dropped. So the leadway, they came and they registered us, but nothing is happening. We don't understand. And you said, if the company, they have 15 or more staff, it is mandated that this company should have a pension system for the staff. So if you have a situation whereby the company are not even interested in the welfare, because this is also because I'm under a human resource, I have a career with human resource. So if the pension, the company is not actually interested in the welfare of the staff, because this is one of the welfare package, and this is even a mandatory welfare package, is non-questionable, and the company is not yielding to this, how do we take it up as staffs? And how do I come in as a human resource manager? Should I sue them? Should I take them to NCI? I don't know if you understand. That can lead to my termination, knowing that I should have the interest of the company at hand. I don't know if you understand.
So I don't know. My time is actually up, but this is a very, very important discussion.
Yes.
Your pension is statutory. Your pension is statutory. As a matter of fact, if after it has been deducted from your pay, let's assume your salary is paid on the 30th of June. You understand what I'm saying? Your pension is supposed to be remitted within 1 week of deduction. So it is a very, very important this thing. It's a very, very dicey situation. Your pension should be remitted within a month. So you need to talk to them. Okay, like you said, you also have to protect your job. Then I think you really need to talk to whoever, maybe your reporting manager who you report to, or the head of the organization. Or on the alternative, you bring it to the attention of PENCON, because your pension has to be remitted. It is also for your own future. If Yes, of course, we don't want to lose our jobs and all that. But the truth of the matter is that anything can happen. If the employer decides tomorrow to terminate you for whatever reason, maybe they say there's a redundancy or they're having economic challenges or what have you, what do you fall back on? Because the Pension Reform Act provides that if you have been unemployed for 4 months, you can access your retirement funds. So if your retirement funds are not being remitted to your PFA, it's a lose-lose situation for you, because you are losing out on your retirement funds, and then for whatever reason, you've also lost your job. So please, I really implore you to talk to whoever you can talk to, maybe your head of HR or the head of the organization, talk to them, or you can find a way, maybe get somebody else involved to bring it to the attention of PENCOM. It doesn't have to be you directly. You can talk to somebody, you can go to PENCOM office, talk to an officer there, let them know your challenges, and so that they can now come to maybe audit the organization or something, but you also have to protect yourself. I understand that there are job challenges in Nigeria and all that, but you also have to think about your future. If for whatever reason your pension is not being remitted and you lose your job, let's assume you don't even do anything about this thing and nothing happens. What if you lose your job next month and you're unable to get a job for the next 3 or 4 months? That is where your pension contribution comes in. So please, I really, really will appeal to you to take this serious, all right? And then find a way to get it resolved. I think my time is up. Now, if you have any further questions, you can always chat on LinkedIn. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn and we can chat via LinkedIn. All right. So thank you very much, everybody. If you have any further questions, you can just drop it in my LinkedIn messages, and I'll try as much as possible to respond and give assistance where necessary. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Temi. Thank you, Yewande. Thank you, everybody. Okay.
Please accept my connection, please.
Oh, what did you say? I didn't get that.
Please, if you have any other questions,
I said you should please accept my connection on LinkedIn.
Okay, I'll do that. No problem. I'll do that right away. Okay, I'll do that. I'll do.
Me too.
Okay, no problem. Once we're done here, I'll just go to LinkedIn and accept. So any questions you have, you can just drop it and I'll do my best to respond. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, Adam Aguma. I'm so grateful that you make time out of your busy schedule to do this with us. And I'm sure every participant on this call got value for their time and resources. Thank you so much, man. We are so grateful. Thanks to everyone who joined this call. Thanks to those who organized this to make it a reality. Thank you so much. I couldn't have done this without you all. So this is Career Life Nigeria, and as I said, we do this every month. And if you get to follow us or connect with us on social media, you can do that, so you get the links to join our Telegram community and be a part of us. You can always make a request for what topic you want to be trashed, you want us to tweet, then we would make that happen. We have a Google form, you fill it online, and then you make you write there what career related issue you want us to talk about, and then bring in a top professional, a facilitator, an experienced person that can do that, and then we do it. Like Nigeria.
Sorry, are you telling me that I can't hear Timmy? Or is it my network?
I think she's echoing. She's echoing.
Yeah, it's very low.
Yes, I even wanted to type. I was typing to her that
It's really low. Tell me, okay, let me help you do the introduction. Can you hear me? Because I feel like people are leaving and I can't even hear you at all.
Okay, yes, please help me out.
Okay, so basically, welcome. This is Career Life for those that are still here. And I just want to talk about the Employability Fitness Program happening next month. So yeah, we actually have monthly sessions, right? This is like a constant K. We invite senior professionals like Adama here who have done justice. And then the Employability Fitness Program is a program that helps young graduates overcome interview phobia. You know, you meet professionals across various fields, not just HR, but also subject matter experts. And then they get to interview you and give you feedback. So it's not just the case where you go for interviews and you don't get feedback, but they just send you that generic rejection email and then you just don't know what's wrong. But with this program, you actually get those feedback and you get to network. And a lot of our participants have actually gotten jobs on the spot or jobs through the people that have been interviewed. So I will drop the link to register. It's free. It's actually very free. It's in Lagos, alongside Keja. Please do register, invite your friends to register, and yeah, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. This is the handle. We actually share also relevant content almost every day, and then you can also ask questions. So I think that's it. Thank you, Adama. I really appreciate it. Like, you know, getting a seasoned professional like this to come and break down some of these things. Thank you so much. I appreciate for your time. I know you are very busy, but you took out time. Please, if you are still here, let's celebrate her and appreciate her for her time. So yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Martha.
Thank you, Adama.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Adama.
Thank you, I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, man.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, and have a very wonderful evening.